Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week's conversation was a blast. I'm so excited to have you with me for this next segment. Let's get back to the show. Thank you for your understanding on the poor audio quality this week and throughout the series with David Chambliss.
Well, we go in the order of kind of the cultivation cycle. So tell me, after your cultivation story, what's your best solicitation story?
Yeah, that's a fun question too, because what's funny in development is people always go, I could never do your job because I don't like asking for money. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, I don't really like asking for money. Like that sounds like slimy, like they'll asking for, like, I don't know, like it sounds like I'm just calling you and saying, get your pocketbook out. I know it sounds cliche, but I'm like, I don't like asking for money either. But what I like to do is share the story of impact, and I like asking for investment. And so it's not like I'm like, hey, Tom, would you give me X amount? It's always like, I know you said that scholarships are important to you. Can I share with you what an endowed scholarship might look like, where you're kind of like showing them what an investment might make? But with that being said, I wanted to share that because I do think a lot of times people think that we're just calling people at random. And I'm like, well, in my role, I'm building relationships with them and the university, and obviously through me, but it's I want you to be re-engaged with your alma mater or with your kid's school, so the good work that's going on there. And then let me share with you how you can make an impact. But there was a time in my early 20s where I visited an athletic director in his office of a D1 university, like a big shot SEC school. And I went down and I was super nervous and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy even took a visit. Like, he's got to be the most busy person alive. I'm, in my nice suit and tie and like ready to, and he couldn't be more friendly. And I right away realized wow, this meeting's going to be, I think, a little easier. He was asking me all about me and like, let me show you my office. And have you ever been down? And I just felt so at ease. And I remember it was his 30th reunion at the university I was working for at the time. And so I asked him if he would consider a gift of $30,000 in honor of his 30th reunion. And he immediately was like, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And then he goes, he basically asked, do you think you should have asked for more? Now, I thought I was going to fall out of my chair. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I just like lowball, like, should I? I don't know. It just kind of came to me and I was like, no, actually, I think 30 is a nice way to get your foot in the door. And I bet when you come back for reunion, you'll want to make an even bigger gift than I would have been prepared to ask you for today. And so I kind of like tried my best to respond, but I just remember he ended up being a really generous donor and got involved and came back and all this stuff. But when a donor says, do you think you should have asked for more? I was like, I'm getting fired. Like there's no like, this is the end of my career. If somebody says yes quickly to a solicitation, you immediately think, was that the right amount? Like, were they expecting, like, you feel like you're going to offend them by asking for too much, but in a weird way, I've always felt that like you almost are more offensive if you ask for too little, because people might think to yourself, like, wow, this person, they actually think that they might say, listen, that's out of my capacity at this time or something. But I don't think they ever really offended anybody by making a significant ask. They're quick to tell you that's higher than we were thinking. But I can tell you that there's been a lot of solicitations in my life where I'm like, we definitely asked too low. Like they said yes so quickly that we probably should have got a better feel for the area. So now as I've gotten older, and again, there's no right way about it. There's always an art and a science to this. But I think before you make a major gift ask, I've always said, like, well, what's the impact you're looking to make? Like, what is the total impact that you're hoping to make? And if that's a full scholarship or, full faculty chair, then let me tell you what that might look like in terms of like how much that might take philanthropically. Is that something you'd be comfortable talking about? That way, when you make the ask, you kind of have an idea of like the ballpark they're thinking about. So feel like me and have this guy across the table go, yeah, sure, I'm good for that. Do you think I should have given more? And I'm like, oh man, like,
Hmm.
yeah,
So he came back for his reunion.
yep.
Did you end up getting a bigger gift out of him?
Yeah, he did. He did get he was starting to get a little bit more engaged, and I think this was sort of testing the water. And he did end up doing a nice scholarship and getting involved with athletics and all the things that they were open to. A lot of it was a timing thing too. I
Hmm.
it's easy in development to say like, oh, I'm the person that like engaged this person, and I'm the greatest fundraiser. But a lot of times philanthropy is at people's timing. So it's not that they
Yeah.
are philanthropic. It's just they might have something happen at their or in their business, like for the positive, where they received a nice amount of money, or they finally reached a point where they have enough that they feel comfortable giving back. Because as you know, anybody that's worked in this field for a long time, you'll talk to somebody that's in a role that you were in 10 years ago, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy, like I saw him 50 times and like I never could get him to make a gift. And they're like, oh, he just put his name on a building, right? And you're like, what the, like that happens, and you have to
Yeah.
be okay with that. That it's not. Again, it goes back to the patience thing. It's the
Yeah.
you have to be patient, and people's philanthropic giving isn't always on our time. Like as much as everybody I visit, I would like them to step up and say, yes, today I would like to support Vanderbilt or whatever institution you were at. The patience thing is like if you can get them engaged, hopefully you are the one that is able to get them to think about a nice gift and doing an impact.
Hmm.
There's hundreds of people I visited that have said no thanks or not right now or Vanderbilt's not a priority, and that's okay. And I hope that somebody after me or who visits them in 10 years, 20 years or something, maybe there's a better time in people's lives where they can do that. I think you see a lot of people who are very generous to a lot of causes, and their first gift was $5, or $10, where you're going like, wow, like this in 1990, somebody visited them and said, will you just give to your fifth reunion? And they're like, yeah, here's $50. And because of that, and they came back, they're like, okay, and they got re-engaged and they are remembering why they loved their organization. But it's the patience thing. And, this solicitation, is it timing? Is it the right amount? Um, you're always thinking of those things as you're in the fundraising world. Could I have done something better? Should I have done something different? Trying not to be too hard on yourself, but of course, when you have goals to hit and you want to be successful in the advancement professional, you do kind of think about that often. Should I be doing something different to cultivate, to solicit? Is there any other rocks I haven't looked under for potential supporters? So I don't know. It's an art and a science and patience that I'll keep going back to.
Yeah. Well, those are are three great things there. Um, well, tell me about your best stewardship story.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to the greatest cultivation is good stewardship. So
That's right.
if you have somebody who has been a generous supporter of your organization, there's no better way of cultivating them towards a new gift or additional support than good stewardship of their past support. The worst possible thing you can do is not steward people and just expect that their money is just going to keep coming in because you call them every 2 years and remind them. If you aren't stewarding them and showing them the impact they're making and helping somebody's life and whatever your organization. So I would say one of the best stewardship stories that it's sort of fresh to my mind is I have a campaign committee, and they're a group of individuals, alumni, and parents who are committed to supporting Peabody College and Vanderbilt University. We meet twice a year, and I think it was like last fall. There was a couple on our committee that are extremely generous to the university and just the nicest people, and they just want to invest in students' lives. And I'll save that. There's a really kind of long story backstory to how I got connected to this student for another time. But last minute, very last minute, like morning of the campaign committee meeting, I was able to connect with the student that was on scholarship there, and I said, "Can you come to this room at 3 p.m. today and like introduce yourself?" And he said, "Sure." And so like he wasn't on the agenda. The dean didn't know this was happening. I was on an email chain at lunchtime, like, can you still make it? All this fun stuff. And he came, and I said, this is a last minute addition to the agenda. I just want to introduce this young man. He's a junior. He's from Chicago. He is oversees like this organization and this organization, and he's got really high grades. And this past year, he created a nonprofit where he basically picks up litter, in the rivers and stuff, like the most unbelievable, well-rounded, like makes you think, what the heck was I doing when I was 20 type of kid. And I said, he's doing all of these things, and he's able to do it because he is your scholars and your scholar. And I pointed to the family that hadn't met him yet. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Like they had not met him yet. They had heard that their scholarship had been awarded, but we hadn't done the scholarship reception and stuff that we do every year. And I said, this is your scholar. Like, he's here with your scholarship. And, there was hugs, and they became very close, and everybody was just like, you could see people just melt, because it wasn't about like all the money raised. It was like, there was the true story. Like, it wasn't about this campaign. And here's some quantitative numbers, which are very important. It was about, meet this young man.
Yeah.
And look how impressive he is. And look at all the things he's been doing in his first 3 years in college. And he's just the nicest guy. And he's able to come here because you right here sitting in front of me provided a scholarship. And so that was a really cool stewardship moment. And it kind of happened last minute. Like, it wasn't something that I had planned for months. It was like, I connected with this young man, like very close to and I was like, what if we in my mind, I was just like, what if I brought him in and said, like, this is your recipient, like off the cuff. And they became close with him, and they became close with his family. And, that's just one of those stories where you're like, sometimes people want to see a real life. And I think that Vanderbilt has done a really good job about that. When I was at Ohio State, I thought they did a really good job with that, where they really tried to share with the donors, here's the impact that you're really having. Like, we can share with you numbers all day long, and that sounds amazing, but like, here's the student, here's the faculty, here's the research that changed lives, here's the building where kids, meet their best friends, and that you help support. That kind of stewardship is hard to recreate. Hard to beat. Like, that's just really important. And so that was a cool story.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Fundraising can be hard work, and it can be hard to mentally get into the place you need to be in order to see new opportunities. Everyone struggles with it. We are like the fish in the fishbowl who just can't see the water they're swimming in. That's when having outside expertise comes in handy. For 25 years, I've been helping nonprofits analyze their challenges, discover new ways forward, and develop clear plans that lead to greater fundraising revenues. Now I am available to help your organization develop the abundant vision it needs to inspire new levels of philanthropy at your nonprofit as well. Check out abundantvision.net to start your journey toward greater fundraising success today. Now, back to the show.
I'm curious. This is my favorite question that I get to ask on this show.
Yeah.
Tell me about the most awkward moment you've ever had with a donor, and how did it resolve?
I love that question. I feel like I've been to a few like AFP and case conferences where like that was like the lunch topic, and everybody was like, "Oh, I got one," and everybody was just one up in the next person where you couldn't believe it. Because I'm like very laid back in my approach, and like I said earlier, I never meet a stranger. Like, when I meet somebody for 5 minutes, it's like, tell me your whole life story, and like, oh, your brother lives in Pittsburgh, like, you must know this guy, and like you all of a sudden you feel like you know each other. It's hard to make me like kind of uncomfortable or awkward, because like there's not much somebody can say that like throws me off. I'm usually pretty confident in my approach, but also like laid back. But in any fundraising story, when you go to somebody's living room and say, tell me about you and your background, you don't know where that's going to lead. And people will share everything from health diagnoses to relationship problems to issues with their ex or financial issues that you have to be like, oh, I'm sorry to hear, or supportive of. And so obviously over the years, there's been some super kind of awkward, or you like leave the meeting and you're like, what just happened? Like, the one that comes to mind often, and I think it's just kind of more funny than it was awkward, but it was so awkward in the moment, is when I was probably in my mid-20s. So I only had a few years of professional experience out of the gate. I was in a older couple's home, just the nicest couple. And I was talking to them. They met at the university that I was working at, and they just were so sweet and very generous to the school. And they're like, "Tell us about you." And I was like, "Oh, I just finished grad school, and like I've been doing this for 3 years." Um, and they were like, like that's really cool that you do this. Would you be open to talking to our son about what you do? Like he's still trying to figure out what, like, and I was like, "Yeah, I'd be happy to." Well, the mom basically goes and knocks on the basement, like the door, and was like, "Hey, like Johnny or whatever, their son, can you come up here for a second?" They have like a 42-year-old son living in the basement, and he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. And she's like, "Let me introduce you to David. And he works at XYZ University, and um, would you mind like telling our son like kind of your background?" And for like 30 minutes I'm talking to their son about, so like what do you like to do? And it was just the conversation went from me talking about the family getting involved to me becoming like a life coach to their son. He had no interest in being in that living room at the time. He didn't care what I was doing. He was looking at me like, "I don't want to do what you do."
Yeah.
You could tell the dad was uncomfortable with it, where he was like, "I can't believe this just happened." The mom was sitting there like, "Yeah, like you should apply for a job there." I just remember leaving the meeting and being like, "What just happened?" Like
Oh,
I just became a life coach to somebody's grown kid that hasn't. And I mean, I was kind of appreciative, like humbled that they would have asked me to do that, but it wasn't like maybe you could have a Zoom call with him in a few weeks. It was like, "Oh, we'll go get him right now." And by the way, he's 20 years older than you, and I was like, "Okay, this is uncomfortable, super uncomfortable." Um,
wow.
and
Goodness.
I feel bad for their son because he was like, I don't care what this kid has to say."
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the awkward ones that I felt that I could share on here. I've
Yeah.
definitely had experiences where people have shared information like TMI. You're like, "Listen, man, I didn't." There seems to be like this filter that goes away sometimes with people where they either are very comfortable with you or they don't have a filter with anybody, and they're comfortable saying things to you that you're like, you shouldn't say that out loud. It's either inappropriate to say or it's a thought that they had that should have stayed a thought, and you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Ooh, ooh."
Yeah.
You just shut it off, I think.
I had an individual who was very self-important,
Yep.
who uh, who was offended that a certain leader couldn't remember meeting them before, and he was from a part of the state that's known for organized crime, and let me know that if my leader did that again, well, actually no, he said, if this were back in the day where I grew up,
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
there would be physical and even sexual violence committed
Correct.
against that leader. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so this is the last time
Mhm.
you're ever going to be around my leader.
100%. Immediately, you're like not bringing this person around anybody of any type of power or. But
And
it's just so common in our fields when you meet
yeah,
people and say, "Tell me about you," especially if they get to know you or they're very passionate about a certain topic. Or if I'm going to ask, "Hey, how do you feel about this?" I think they feel like they're comfortable sharing. But yeah, there's dozens and dozens of stories that you have where people you couldn't believe divulge either information or said things of like family drama that they're having that they tell you about, that you understand, like, what, we're all human, and like there's a human connection that you have to have with people, so you don't feel like a transactional robot that just shows up when your university or your nonprofit wants to share the good word, and like, "Here I am, let me tell you what's going on, and do you want to write a check?" And I'm leaving. It's like, "Listen, you're a human, I'm a human. I'm trying to help make a difference. I'm asking you to help me make a difference." And in the process, if you want to tell me about some struggles you're having with your family and stuff, like, I'm open to listening. Of course, the awkward stuff comes when it's like more information than you were prepared to hear
yeah,
or be a part of, or converse topics that are too sensitive that you don't want to really approach, but you're like, "Well, here we are." But some of that's just growth and maturity over the years. You learn how to respond better, because I don't know that there's, for some people, there's things that they can say or do where I'm like, I don't have a good response, especially if it's like this person you were talking about, where they're like, if this happened when I was a kid, there would have been violent crimes and stuff. You're like, well, it's like, I don't know if you've heard, but it's not 1935 anymore. So
That's right.
things have changed. But yeah, when you meet with people, sometimes they're like, well, this would have never happened under so and so's watch. I'm like, didn't that guy die in 1970? Not like, didn't that president like?
Right,
But
right.
you always know everything's anchored to like your experience. Even when we go back to our own alma maters, you're always like, I can't believe they would tear down that residence hall that was already falling down anyways. You're like, it was like a staple, and like
That's
it.
right. Oh
It
man,
one,
did did, did
yeah.
you ever live in Rogers Hall?
I lived next to Rogers Hall, and I know that it was a popular, like thousands of kids lived there. I lived next to it.
Yeah, so you're in Cole then, right? At BG, yeah. So
Yep.
you know, I have so many memories from Rogers, and I was so like bummed when it got torn down.
Right.
But as I remember it, like it was an asbestos filled,
100%. 100%. It was like ready to be torn down 20 years before it got torn down. And like, in my opinion, you want to go back to your university, and it's like news. You want to see like all this new stuff. A small part of me is like, that's so amazing when you go back and you see all the growth. And then a small part of me is like, these kids don't realize how good they have it these days. Like the dining services, like in at BG, like it was Mac Lawn when I was there, and now
oh man,
it's like a Dunkin' Donuts and a huge dining facility, and there's all these brand new like Falcon Heights, and I'm like, gosh, this place is amazing. And then I'm a little bit angry that how nice like the residents, but you want that. Like I don't think you'd want to go back and there's like kids hanging out of Rogers Hall. They're like, hey, there's still is that hole I punched in the wall in 2000? Like it's still there, yeah. Like
yep, yep,
and so I think growth is inevitable, and you want to be a part of an organization, not just a university, but even like a nonprofit where there's like
yeah,
things are always kind of evolving and growing, and for
hmm
you don't want it to feel like it's stagnant and like, hey, it's the exact same thing that was 35 years ago. You're going to be like, what new things are changing to adapt to the culture of today and the times of the now that you can make an impact. And I think that's the exciting part is when you work at a nonprofit in any type of development, you're like, how can I share the good work that we're doing and the even better work we could be doing if it was for your philanthropy? Like, because of you, we've been able to do all of these things. And also because of you, if you invest in us, we can really grow this mission. We can make a difference. I mean, you only have to pick up the newspaper lately and see that there's been an assault in higher education and like leadership and decisions that they've made in different ways. We're so fortunate because like here at Vanderbilt, our chancellor has been, I mean, A plus plus in all of the ways he's handled so many of the tough things that have happened, and just like his approach to leadership, and like how we were talking earlier about it's not on us to like decide how people should think. It's sort of like the higher education should be a place where different ideas are brought together but respected, and how do we have like that open dialogue. And I think Vanderbilt has been in the forefront lately of just how do we share the good work that we're doing. We're growing like crazy. We're starting a brand new college of connected computing. We've got investing a lot in athletics. We're investing a ton in scholarships, and it's like, and we're trying to share that good word on a national scale. And I feel like we've done a really good job about it in a turmoil environment, to say the least.
wow. Well, it sounds like, David, wonderful things are happening at Vanderbilt. It certainly is clear that you've had a fantastic career just develop over the years with all the people that have built into you and the great donors that you've gotten to work with. Thank you so much for sharing some of that wisdom, some of that experience with me and our listeners today. We so appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom. It's great to catch up with you, and I appreciate you doing this podcast because I love learning from other people's experiences and just hearing about how people approach this crazy, fun world that we call fundraising and development and advancement. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and hearing from some of your other guests.
Hey, well, thank you so much. And if you're interested in learning about, the fundraising program at Vanderbilt, so you can join that team and work remotely with David there, be sure to check that out. Is that vanderbilt.edu?
Yep, vanderbilt.edu. If you Google Vanderbilt Development Alumni Relations, we have a website now where you can go directly to finding the jobs that are posted. And on all of our jobs now, we put if they need to be in person, hybrid, or remote, so you can see what that might look like. And love to have more people reach out and come join the Vanderbilt team. Thanks, Tom. Good to see you. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.